Welcome to Artkyk. This is Urvaja.
And this is Yamini. We love to talk about art.
So do join us as we share our insights of this world with you. Hi, Yamini.
Hey, Urja. Good morning.
Good morning. So, we were talking about secondary markets last time, and we made a reference to auctions and how they are one of the most dynamic spaces in the art world where people can see what's happening in the buying and selling of an artwork. So, should we take some of our listeners through what is it they need to focus on if they are interested in participating in an art world auction?
Absolutely. I think it may seem daunting at first because an art auction is slightly different from any other auction that you might have participated in the past. So, to begin with, of course, the standard is that you would have a catalog, be it physical or online, wherein you have the artworks that are going to be auction listed, and they're listed in a format. They're numbered, and that numbering gets referred to as a lot number. So they say, you will hear that term often, oh, this lot is sold for so much, or what is the next lot that's going to come up. It simply is a way of identifying a particular painting or a sculpture that has been listed in the auction. Before that, also, the auction is a really important document because every auction house will put out their terms and conditions of participating. How do you register? What entails in terms of the buyer's premium and additional charges, shipping, and etc. that gets listed out. So, guys, it's important that you read that document carefully. Yeah. So far, this is the most basic kind of information, which I think Urvaja, everybody should be aware of. That it's not only the art, but it's also the legal binding terms which are listed in there.
And also the information they need to understand what the pricing means, be it a condition report or a provenance. Could you just briefly touch upon that as well?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I'll start with the most exciting part, which is the pricing. Unlike any publicly available catalog, you will find a list price or an estimated price, which is put up there for every lot. It's got a low price and a high price. Some of you might wonder why the price band that's put in there. It's simply for a person to understand that the minimum value that this work has sold in the past in a public auction is that, and the maximum value that it could go up to is the higher. So it's kind of benchmark between the low end to the high end. And this is based on a lot of data that's analyzed. What is the year of the work? Of course, the aesthetic value, condition, multiple factors define the low price and the high price of the work. It also tells the buyer, this is the approximate value that can be expected for that particular artwork.
And there are things like artworks make headlines when they breach the estimates or...
Absolutely. So, the myth that you will get a work at a low price, I mean, not really a myth. Sometimes you do get lucky and you get something that's even lower. But most often the excitement rests in the past that, oh, how high did it sell for? And, what was a record price achieved for it? So that's where the game is kind of all centered around. Of course, the other information that is very crucial for any person who wants to buy in an auction are the history of the work, or what in the art terminology is known as the provenance. It's listed out in the catalog again. So it's a change of hands, or it's a sale chain. The previous owners of the artworks are listed out very clearly against every artwork. And that kind of gives you confidence of saying that, oh, that's a good collection that it was in, or how many times it has changed hands, or was it listed in an exhibition, which gallery it went to. The other piece of information now, which is to do with the actual physical conditions of the artwork. And, why that is important? Because, Urja, like we were talking, these are works that have been in collections, right? They have changed hands, moved cities. They're not like fresh from the artist studio. They've aged over a period of time. And any work that, that's been through this life history is bound to have certain condition issues, and that is par for the course. If you find a work that's absolutely in mint condition, you need to dig deeper and see why it is in mint condition. Of course, it could be because it was in a phenomenal collection and they've maintained the work very well. But by and large, there are certain issues with the work, minor, major, and a condition report is your key to understanding how good the physical aspects of the work are. So 3 things to note over here is the estimated value, the provenance, the condition report. Of course, there may be other additional information content that comes into it. An artist quote on that particular work, or an art historian has written about it, or the work has been published in it, then these kind of enhance the value of the work and it becomes that much more desirable.
We have to touch upon one of the most expensive auction piece ever sold, which was Da Vinci's Salvatore Mundi, which went for close to $500 million. And again, it was a piece without, any previous record of sale per se, because it was not recognized as Da Vinci's work before this, prior to this. But how well it was brought to the public space, and so how that kind of, ignited an auction war, which went to this completely ridiculous price. So that's, I think, what the other aspect of auctions, that the frenzy can take over.
Absolutely. And the frenzy is also, since you brought up the Da Vinci, that work was heavily conserved.
Yes,
I would
that's why I remembered it as it changed from the original sort of essence of the drawing to what was finally sold.
Absolutely. Of course, that work is nearly 500 years old. So, when we're talking about Indian art, of course, since you're talking modern and contemporary, we're not talking about hundreds of years. I mean, there are a few hundred. Even in that lifespan, there are multiple things that can happen with a work. And that's not bad. It's not something that should put you off a work. You just need to be aware of it, and you need to know what has happened to it and how you need to take care about it. That's all it means. So you're armed with all this information and you're excited about the auction. Let's say you've completed the pre-registration process. Each auction house has something that's very unique to them. What you have as a paddle number, which is very exciting, especially if it's the first time that you have a paddle number.
And you get a paddle number upon registration, right?
Yes, you have to complete the registration process and you're assigned paddle number. Of course, if it's an online auction, you still get a paddle number, but the joy of holding that paddle is not there. But that's a different kind of fun that happens. Before even we get into the bidding part of it, which I think, there's always this confusion that I have answered, or people have asked me, what is the reserve price, and can you tell me the reserve price? And a reserve price, unlike any other, probably a real estate auction or anything else, is not revealed. It's something that is confidential between the auction house and the seller. But what does the reserve price mean? Quite simply, it means the minimum value that any particular lot in an auction will sell at. It's predefined. And it is distinct from the lower estimate and the higher estimate, or the estimated value. What happens, and that also adds again this whole thing of mystery to it, will we get it, will we not get it? And then people start bidding at a price that is lower than the estimated value, or even the auction house doesn't begin the bidding at the lowest estimate. It starts at a point which is typically 25% lower than the lower estimate. Now we start getting into the whole technical aspects of it. So
not to get too deep into the technical aspects per se, but I guess what we need to then understand is that a reserve price is a point of contract between the seller and the auction house as to what is the price that they would agree for the final sale of, and below that they would not accept the work to be sold.
Absolutely. So there may be a situation where, just as an example, if there's a painting that has been estimated between 5 lakhs to say 7 lakhs, the bidding for that particular lot will begin at a price which is say 3 lakhs, or even lower, sometimes say at 2.5 lakhs. and it just goes up to say, 3 lakhs. There are people who've bid on it and it's come up to 3 lakhs, but the auctioneer says brought in. What does that mean? It means that that particular artwork, though there were 2 people bidding on it, it did not meet the reserve price and it was unsold, or they don't use the word unsold or not sold. It's a very slick way of saying brought in. And sometimes you can't even catch that, but it just remains unsold. That's when you know that the reserve price has not been met for that particular work. You may have this question, then why start at a price that is not even the reserve price? That's the whole idea, right? To entice, or you feel that you may get the work lower than what the lower estimate is.
Also, I guess it adds to the entire drama of being in an auction.
Correct.
Sort of, getting that, sweet price for a work that you did.
Absolutely. And that's what gets people excited. Oh my God, let's imagine, this is a Raza, and, look at the estimate. It looks fantastic. Let me just put in 2 bids, and then somebody else has something else. So it draws a lot of people in. And there are cases sometimes, if you're lucky, that the painting may not have a reserve price. And that's where you stand to win, the work at a phenomenal price, and don't get into the record-breaking aspect of it. So as a seller, you always want to achieve the record-breaking price, but when you're buying, you want it to be lower than the lower estimate. So that estimated band is really what gets everybody excited and thinking and plotting, saying that how do you get that work, for that particular work.
So you have successfully participated in the auction and, hopefully got a really fantastic piece for a really good price. And then the auction house takes over to issue you an invoice and, send you stuff.
Exactly. And
but
then
there's something called a buyer's premium there that you pay.
Yeah. What you have to understand is the buyer's premium is something what the auction house charges, and they charge that because they're the ones who are sourcing the works. They're the one who do the due diligence for it, and they make that work available, and they bring, kind of present it in a manner that makes it more accessible and easy for you to buy that particular work, and that's what it is. Of course, if you go back to the auction catalog, there are multiple slabs which are based on value. So if it is up to a certain value, you pay an X amount of percentage. And then again, I urge everybody to look at the taxation that is associated with buying, and which state you're buying in, which country you're buying in. Those are the additional charges which are very important, that as a buyer you should always look out for, because these sometimes, it's not a nominal amount, but it's quite a substantial chunk, which can range between a minimum of a 20% to maximum, depending on the additional charges of shipping, insurance that gets added on to it. Mind you, these charges would apply even if you buy it from a gallery. You don't see it as a premium that is announced separately.
And all the gallery sales have their own mechanics and dynamics, and hopefully we'll cover some other talk.
Correct.
So they have now they've got the invoice with all the charges. And then the auction house typically ships it out to their logistics partners. Anything else that we need to think about when we are looking at auctions?
I think it's important to maintain the documentation, of that work. Invoices that you have, the provenance, the catalog, the additional material that comes with it. Supposing, it's a work that was published in a book, make the effort or ask the auction house to get you that book if it's not easily available. If it's an exhibition catalog, gather all that material and keep it with you, because that becomes important. And as you kind of transfer the work, maybe, to your family or into a museum, that adds value to it. And this is something that needs to be kind of done in a very methodical and a very proper manner. The other thing is, what most of the times happens is the framing of the artwork or the pedestal that it is in. Most of the times, the frames are a standard frame. So it is something that you need to do, and an auction house will never ever kind of get into the effort of framing the work for you, unless it happens to be the original frame. always make it a point to see what the framing is. You may wonder, why is that important? It's important because that again adds value to the authenticity of the work. It kind of tells you that this is how the artist wanted it. Of course, if it's a badly tattered or in a poor condition, you can go ahead and change it. But the frame is something that gets overlooked, and there's a history that comes into it. These are little things that kind of make the work more fun. And sometimes you have something written at the back of the work. Just kind of get a good photograph, maintain the records of it, and then go ahead and enjoy the work.
Excellent. No, that was a really, really, I think it was a really good synopsis of somebody who doesn't know how to sort of start bidding for an art auction. And I guess one of these days we'll also talk about some of the key art auction houses in India and how they work, and there's a calendar of auctions, etc.
Absolutely. I think that's another interesting area as to how you keep track about it. But auctions are fun, and I think if you read up the catalog, if you do your research on the prices, it's a great place to be and a great opportunity to buy. The other thing is, because why auctions are also interesting to buy, because unlike an exhibition where it is possibly a small selection of work of the contemporary artist or even the masters, the auction really tells you what has been in people's home, what have people bought, and it gives you a great cross section of works of multiple time periods, geographies. It's crazy in that sense that you start looking at it from a different perspective. But of course, this today we're just talking about as a buyer, when you do get into buying, how do you do that? So I think that's a great information that we have shared with our listeners today, Urvija.
That's excellent. So let's wind down for this particular talk right now, and then next, I guess we'll have another exciting subject to get into soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. You were listening to Artkyk, where we share personal views on subjects in the art world.
For more such content, please visit our website www.artkyk.com. That's ARTKYK. Keep listening.